Hey guys, in today's video I want to talk about the email and phone call type solicitations that business owners of all kinds get, even people like me that are in the industry that a lot of these solicitations come from. A lot of them are just mass blowout to a bunch of people, but many times over the years doing consulting and work with my ongoing clients, I've been asked about emails that they get about this where they're like, hey, this person is claiming this or saying this, what do you think about it? And when it comes up often enough for me, it just seems like something that's worth talking about and sharing. And so the goal of this video is for me to go over from what my experience is, the common tactics that are used in these and how you can better identify which ones are probably worth paying attention to and have some simple filters to know the ones that are just wasting your time. The three varieties that most of these junk ones come in that I want to talk about today are the ones that are incredibly vague. Even if they don't seem vague to you, I'm going to explain to you so you know what to look for, just how they're vague. And it's kind of an art form of them writing emails that are meant to sound like they're talking to you, but really apply to anyone, and that's the game. Or the ones that use scare tactics, whether or not they overtly seem like that's what they're doing. Or the ones that are just being deliberately misleading with the wording that they're using about the way they're representing themselves. So I'll delve into that one when we get there. Let's start with vagueness. So I personally have gotten ones where they're like, I like this article that you wrote, and they specifically mention it, and they share a URL. Off the bat, that's a promising sign because when you're reading the email, you think, wow, this isn't just one you frisbeed out to half the internet. You've actually gone to my site and found a blog post that I've written. Okay, I'm listening. But then they blow it with things like, it ranks number 16 when I searched it, and I can help you. Apart from the fact that you're talking to somebody who does this for a living, trying to sell my services to myself, which is kind of stupid. Let's even suppose I wasn't in the SEO game. The bits of that claim that are vague are you claim you rank number 16 when I searched you. For what? You're not saying what you searched for that I rank number 16 for. So that's a really empty statement. And because rankings are so, in a lot of cases, determined by locality, I don't know where you are. I might rank number 1 or number 3 in the radius of people that I'm trying to rank for. And the fact that you're halfway across the world and you claim that I rank number 16, irrelevant. I don't care. But you're threatening me with that like as though this is an on-fire issue. Or they'll say things like, you're not ranking for your keywords, and I've got a report that shows it. And of course, that's designed to make a person say, oh, geez, they've got a report. This isn't just a person claiming it. They've run some kind of software that proves it. I need to take this seriously. Again, the vagueness. You're not ranking for your keywords. What keywords? And a couple of times when my clients have forwarded that to me, like, hey, I got this email, what do you think of it? That's when I have replied to the person. Oftentimes I don't. But when I do, I'll open that up by saying, what keywords are you talking about? If you can answer that question intelligently, we can continue having a conversation. Because these are clients that I'm tracking the keywords for, and I know for a fact that we are ranking fairly well for all of the ones that we have targeted. And so when somebody comes in and says, you're not ranking for your keywords, that's a conveniently vague statement. You could be talking about stupid keywords that I didn't pick because they're not useful to the client. And maybe we indeed don't rank for those, but it's irrelevant. Or, again, you're in the wrong locality. If you're halfway across the country or the world saying you don't rank for these, well, of course not. If I'm working with a local home remodeler or a plumber, we're only trying to rank in our city. Of course they don't rank for you. But it's terrifically scary to somebody to just throw that at them and make them sound like because you have a report that shows it, that somehow means something. The other thing to know about reports is a lot of these are very superficial, so they'll just look at really high-level basic stuff, and a lot of them, because these reports are designed as sales tools, then understand going into it, the job of that kind of report is to find problems on purpose. And like anything in life, if you go into a situation saying, I'm on a hunt for where this is messed up, you will find it. That's just confirmation bias going on right there. And no matter how well dialed in any part of your marketing is, there is literally always some room for improvement or something that you missed or could have, by somebody's opinion, done a little better. And so no matter how well your site is objectively doing for SEO, it is always possible for some report that is deliberately programmed to find something to point at. Lo and behold, it can find it. And then they blow it out of proportion and make it seem like it's a huge problem, whether it really is or not, to sell you their services. That's really underhanded. I think that's crap as a business tactic. It really brings a lot of shame to this industry, to be honest. That's my opinion. And it's bothersome to my clients because their inboxes are getting filled up with this kind of junk that they shouldn't be paying attention to. And so if you get emails like that, ignore them. They're bad. And quite frankly, I would challenge the SEO companies that do this kind of marketing with this. If you're so darn good at SEO, why aren't you using your SEO to get clients? Why are you sending junk mail to get it? Because it seems to me that if you were so good at this one thing, you wouldn't be wasting your time with this. Okay, so let's talk about scare tactics. Scare tactics is kind of related to our third point also about misrepresenting everything, so we'll just kind of lump them together. A lot of these scare tactics, not only are they showing you these reports that show all kinds of stuff is wrong or whatever, but what you also need to understand about SEO is there are a lot of people who say that they do SEO and they're correct insofar as they take one like subset of what SEO is and they do that thing and they call that doing SEO. Let's say there are 100 tools in the toolbox that is SEO. It is not realistic for any one person or business that is doing it for you to do all 100 of them. You can't afford for them to do all 100. That would be a vast investment of time. Now, the goal over time when you're talking about a long-term campaign is for them to do as many of them as possible, but often for me, for instance, when I'm going into a campaign to help a website, I'm looking for biggest bang for the buck stuff, especially in the first 30 to 90 days. And so to use that analogy, I might say we have 100 tools. I'm going to pick the 15 of them that are going to, for the money they're paying me, be the absolute best use of my time to get them phone calls. Over time, I'll play with some other ones, but you can also be a specialist in certain aspects of SEO. I mean, I was a writer before I got into this game, and so a lot of the tactic that I use on websites is very content focused. It's not to say that I don't delve in schema and I don't do local directory things and I haven't done backlink building, but primarily my focus is the content because that's what I'm the best at. So for me, I would go into a campaign ignoring a whole bunch of these tools in the toolbox that have nothing to do with my interests or abilities, and my clients can still win without them. Having said that, that opens the door for some guy who is a specialist or something in some obscure tool that I've not used to approach my clients and say, the guy who's handling your stuff isn't even doing this thing. Can you believe it? He must suck. I can help you. A lot of these are scare tactics that they just use. Similar to what I was saying a minute ago about stuff like you don't rank for your keywords vaguely, like whatever that means. They'll show you, one of my favorites is reports that scan how consistent your brand is on like different social media networks and stuff, and then that'll display as an error if you're not on certain networks. They'll be like, you don't even have a Twitter account or an Instagram. These are glaring problems that your SEO or your web manager needs to address. And that's complete BS. Any competent marketer will tell you, you should not be wasting your time on social networks that either you do not enjoy, they do not fit your brand, or that your target audience doesn't really engage with you on. And wasting your time being on those platforms, speaking to the wrong audience just for vanity to say, oh look, I'm on everything, is not a good use of your time. And any report that doesn't understand that and just blanket says, you're not here, this is a problem, is an untrustworthy software because it's proof of just how superficial it is at the way that it's looking at everything that you're doing. So it's not something that you should be paying a lot of attention to. Anybody that wants to really tell you they've done a review of your site and they've got real concrete ideas of how they can help you should be able to say, I looked at this page, I have specific thoughts about this, this, and this, about how we could approach something, and here's what I am offering. That vagueness goes also into their offer. I've seen just as many of these emails where it's not just that they're being vague about what they're saying about you and your website, it's vagueness of what they're even offering. One of them that I saw this morning was talking about the Google 3-pack and how much you want to be in that. And at one point they even said, and if you don't know what the Google 3-pack is, just know it's where you want to be. And I'm reading that thinking, that sucks as a pitch. First of all, the 3-pack just refers, it's a fluffy, jargony term to describe things that go into whether you show up in the top 3 of the local maps listings before it gets into the regular organics. And that has to do with things like link building and directories and reviews and optimizing your maps listing, etc. It's not a term that I or anyone else I personally know who does SEO professionally actually uses in a sentence to talk about local SEO. It's usually just called local SEO. And so off the bat, I'm reading this thinking, you're trying to sell that dazzle to the person using fancy words that nobody who really works in the industry actually uses just to impress this person. But then worst of all, you're saying, if you don't know what it is, just trust me, it's where you want to be. That's compelling? I don't think so. I mean, try selling anything else to somebody. Here's my magical Gidget 9000. You don't know what it is? Well, you need it. Do you sell any units doing that? I doubt it. And if you're not even going to take the time to explain to the person what it is and why them not being there is a real problem and how being there can really solve their problem, then you're not worth paying attention to. And so if you're the business owner reading that, that's another one you could dismiss out of hand because it's a mass email. They're not taking the time to really try to work with you or explain anything to you. And you have to ask yourself this: if you're hungry right now for my business and you're not even willing to actually talk to me like a person or explain anything that you're doing, am I supposed to believe that when I start paying you money, that's going to change? That you're suddenly going to be interested in explaining things to me? Probably not, has been my experience. So take that for what it is. The last little area here gets specifically about misleading and misrepresenting themselves. People that either call and claim that they are Google, which they're not. Google has said many times they don't just call people about their stuff. And if you've worked in the SEO game like I have, and you've ever been in a position where there was an issue with a maps listing or something that you actually needed to communicate with Google to resolve it, you will know it's actually pretty difficult to get someone from Google on the phone. They make it kind of tricky to even find a number, and a lot of times you have to just put in like an email request for a problem and then someone will call you. It's not a number that you can just reach out to, which makes it extra silly when people are claiming like, yeah, I'm Bob from Google, I'm calling about your listing. No, they're not. They don't just call people about stuff. Or people claiming to be a Google partner. Now, this one is kind of a gray area because they do have a certified partner program for like AdWords and other stuff like that. And so if you've gone through that certification process, there's some truth to saying I'm a Google certified partner, and you can use that term. But I find that very misleading because if you're an average business owner who is not really aware that that's what their ads program is called or anything like that, then when you hear the term partner, you're probably thinking what they want you to think when they throw that term around, which is, I actually work directly with Google, or Google reached out to me to hire me because they think I'm so great that I'm worth like speaking on their behalf to people and selling their services for them, and they've officially sanctioned me to do that. And that's not what that means. That just means they've gone through a training program of best practices for making ads and doing localized stuff like that, and that they've completed all the necessary requisites to get a certification from Google, basically saying this person is knowledgeable about how to create ads in the local sphere, and they're trustworthy as somebody that's not going to write terrible ads for you that are going to underperform. It is a vote of confidence in their ability to do ads and things like that, things that the certification actually means, but it's often thrown around, like I said, to imply some kind of actual like business partnership with Google that it doesn't mean. And so I would be very leery anytime you talk to somebody who's leading with, yeah, I'm an affiliate partner or some other nonsense of Google. Why have you never heard of this person? And a lot of my clients will get those kinds of things, or they'll build on an extension of that by saying, oh, well, I'm Bob from Google, or I'm a partner, and there's huge issues with your local listing. It's not even going to show up, or it's not verified, or it's recently become unverified, and now you're not even going to show up in local stuff, but for a low fee, I can fix it. Most of these are outright lies. Several of my clients that have gotten this kind of thing, for instance, claiming your listing has just become unverified, I could log into Google My Business 3 seconds after that email. Nope, it's fine. It's still verified. In fact, when I do incognito searches for local stuff related to what we're trying to rank for, you not only still show up, you are in this Google 3-pack that they're talking about. So, false. The whole thing is just a lie from start to finish. And again, like I said earlier on, it's my opinion, this is the shadiest part of this industry. It's very frustrating when you're a legit SEO just trying to help people do better with their businesses with this stuff out there, because people have either been so overwhelmed by how much junk there is that it's hard to be a legit person coming in the door saying, no, but really you can trust me. Or they've trusted this kind of stuff before, they've been ripped off and they've been burned, and then by the time you're talking to somebody, you're like the 10th SEO guy that they've talked to, and there's a whole lot of incredulousness in it. It's frustrating in the industry. But it's certainly something that I have felt and rolled my eyes at for years, but never really thought to do a video on. And recently, just the prevalence of it coming up over and over again, and the number of times I get asked about it in questions, it seemed like it was worth doing a video about. There's probably more that I could say about all of this, but those are the biggest and most common forms of those kind of emails that I encounter, that I've seen, that I've been asked about. And so my advice to you when fielding that kind of stuff is insist upon them being specific. If it's not clear that they are literally talking about your website with their email, and they're not referencing something tangible and specific about what is actually on your site, actual content you've used, actual blog posts you've written, if they're not giving you some kind of tangible, actual solution that is clearly specific to your website and isn't just a bunch of junk that you could say that would be true of everyone, if they can't be more specific than that, they haven't earned your business as far as I'm concerned. And like I said a minute ago, if they're not willing to actually be useful to you when they're hungry, how do you expect them to continue to be useful for you after you've paid them when they're not hungry anymore because they have your money? So I hope that was helpful for you guys. If you have questions about this, or you want to share an email that you've gotten, reach out in the comments or shoot me an email through the contact on the YouTube channel, and I'll see if I can do my best to answer it. Thanks, guys.